News control, information control is mind control. Anybody knows that. It's very simple. The media is mind control. If you control a population's information, i.e. news, then you control the population. Today we're going to watch a video, multiple videos, about the suspects in a couple of bombings. Go check out my last couple of episodes. With the New Orleans bomber, we're going to see that either the news is being used in a PsyOp or they're guilty of breaking and entering. Let's check it out.
We are going to be looking at some disturbing videos, strange and odd news stories, and as always, let's go ahead and get right into today's video. Now look, most of us are exhausted from 2024, all the strange news stories that were seemingly back to back, but it seems like 2025 just flew out the gate with horrible news stories left and right. We ended 2024 on the final day with a bad omen, where lightning had struck 4 United States monuments. I thought it was 3, but turns out it was 4. In a series of lightning strikes all around the same time, lightning had struck the United States Capitol building, the Washington Monument in DC, the Empire State Building, and the One World Trade Center in New York City. I get it, somebody is going to say that this is just a quote-unquote coincidence, but still, it's rather eerie. This is almost as eerie as the time that a white horse covered in blood and a black horse broke loose throughout London, and at the exact same time, Big Ben just happened to freeze. But anyway, so that happened on the final day of 2024, and then, like I said, there were just a series of horrible news stories that took place on January 1st. But in this first disturbing video, we are going to go ahead and take a look at a video from the New York Post where we had reporters walking throughout and videotaping Shamsun Dinjabar's home, the individual who caused the horrible incident in New Orleans. And tell me if this is not strange to you, because this took place only one day after the incident in New Orleans.
We are here inside the New Orleans terrace home. You can see that it's been clearly destroyed, the door at least, from the FBI raid yesterday. But if we walk through the home, we see some signs of what he was up to. He had this work area here, lots of different chemicals splayed around, and different electronics. This is, again, a work setup. Left receipts, just very unkempt in here. If we go over here, actually, you can see the Department of Justice documents here, the search warrant, and the property that they recorded here, which seems to be a lot of chemicals. Again, just left in disarray. There's a bedroom back here, and what appears to be his collection of religious materials, his Qurans, an open Quran with a passage there, as well as even the Bible here, but mostly books on Islam, and his prayer rug just to the left of me here. And if we go back, there's another bedroom here. You can see he left all these belongings, contact lenses, personal belongings, his bathroom. This seems to be some sort of workspace, again, with other chemicals here. The light's still on, some kind of station set up here. We're not really sure what that was for. In, what we can assume was also a bedroom. You can see clothes left here, and just a sign that someone was here up until those last few moments when neighbors said he left just before the New Year's holiday, saying he was done with his lease, it was up, and he was on his way to New Orleans where he would live there. Didn't take any furniture because he said his new home would be furnished. That's all we know so far.
This was one day after what took place in New Orleans, just one day, where we have news and media, the New York Post, with a camera crew walking throughout this individual's home like it's MTV Cribs. Have we ever seen this before? I am sorry, but I have to come right out and say it. This is very strange. and I'm not the only one that feels this way. By the time of this recording, this video is being heavily ratioed. It has nearly 15,000 views, but only 247 likes. That is because people feel the exact same way. This is really strange. Take for example this top comment here. This individual says, "Something's weird here. Why is his home not a place of investigation? Why is the media using it like a tour guide? What's really going on here?" You mean to tell me in just a little over 24 hours from the incident in New Orleans, police and investigators concluded their investigation of this individual's home to the point that news, media, and a camera crew can just freely explore this home? One would think that while the investigation is still going on, which it is, this home would be taped off from the public, news, and media. Well, come to find out, the FBI and investigators, they were not finished with this home. They were still investigating, because 3 hours before this recording and hours after the New York Post had explored this home with a camera crew, the FBI conducted a second search of this home, and they found chemicals, the same chemicals that the New York Post had found before. Make that make sense. This was published today, January 3rd, by Houston Public Media. Federal agents found precursor chemicals within the home of Shamsuddin Jabbar. So again, was this the same chemicals that the New York Post found when they were doing their investigation? This is crazy. This is absolutely crazy. And how is it that there are some people out there that just don't see it? They just don't see the mind games that's being played on them. It even says it right here. Look, as of Friday afternoon, federal search warrant documents were still sealed, but on Thursday, after police left the area following their initial search, a New York Post reporter entered the home. In a video posted to social media, the reporter shows what appears to be 2 federal documents placed on a countertop detailing what was taken from the home, just perfectly placed. Even if the police were sloppy and forgot to tape off this scene, this place of an open investigation, one would think that the New York Post would think this is a bad idea to go into the home just so quickly, especially given the fact there is still a lot of evidence laid out. You'd think they would have called the authorities to get some kind of permission because they would be in a lot of trouble. But no, that's not how the game works. That's not how the PsyOp works. They were allowed to go in there. While I should not be shocked because Operation Mockingbird told us who the news and media are owned and operated by, I have to say I'm still mind blown here. While the crime did not take place inside his home, the suspect's home is still considered a part of an open investigation. All these comments are in complete unity as to what we're seeing here. This person left a good comment. They said, "Why didn't they have this kind of tour of Thomas Matthew Crook's house, the suspect, the supposed suspect, who fired on Trump's rally?" Speaking of that, has anybody heard or seen Maxwell Urick yet, the person who is said to have really been on the roof? I'm not going to go ahead and keep reading the comments on this video. They are very interesting, and I will leave the link to this video in the description box of this video because I'm sure eventually this video will be deleted. But a lot of people are just saying this is very suspicious, this is a cover-up, this is a PsyOp, because this makes no sense whatsoever. Like with everything that we find strange and suspicious, there's always those people out there to push back, to say that everything is normal. For example, this comment here, this person says, "I would have never thought that we would get a tour of the residence. The attack happened yesterday. Very weird." This person replies with, "Police needs public's eyes and ears. They share via transparency and media shows it. What is wrong with that? If doctors share the same thing that occurred while the C-19 was spreading, the country would not have gone on shutdown and folks would have not ranked up in numbers." I don't think there's anything wrong at all with transparency, but let's not kid ourselves. Let's be honest here. They are never this transparent. They have never done anything like this before, so why are they doing so now? It is like we're being mocked, like somebody believes we're stupid. No different than the story of Luigi Mangione and the United Healthcare CEO, when they said he left behind a book bag with Monopoly money. Monopoly is connected to McDonald's. He was arrested at a McDonald's. He's seen in a picture holding up a McDonald's Happy Meal, and ultimately he's arrested by a Officer Fry at a McDonald's. And when it comes to New Orleans, I'm not saying that real lives were not lost. Of course, real lives were lost. But what are we looking at here? Somebody has to explain this. Then I do believe there was some very suspicious things behind the incident of the Cybertruck at Trump's Tower involving an individual, Matthew Livelsberger. First off, both Shamsud and Livelsberger, they were both military men. Matthew Livelsberger was a Green Beret, and they...
So everybody knows that when there is an investigation and a person's residence, a person who committed multiple deletions is being investigated, you have to seal that off because that's evidence, and that could potentially link evidence to any people that might have helped them, DNA, fingerprints, all that kind of stuff. So we see Lululemon camel toe girl here just walking through the evidence here, traipsing through all of this evidence, destroying the crime scene, tainting the crime scene. Supposedly, this is a terrorist attacker, and there's no crime tape anywhere. They just walk in. They thought, and so either they were allowed to, and this is a PsyOp, this was set up for a PsyOp, or they just saw an open door to a house and walked in. Because they said afterwards, the FBI went in there and did some more investigation after they went traipsing around, destroying and tainting evidence. So, is it a PsyOp or is it breaking and entering? Neither one is good. Why would these people even think that they could walk into this place unless they were told it was okay? This is so obviously a PsyOp. Everybody needs to wake up to this. It's really, really, really scary and sickening. They have to put this stuff together so fast now that they can't even think about it. And by the way, remember at the part there we was talking about the comments, and one person was like, "Oh, it's okay. We want transparency. We want, any old person that could walk in." So what's going to happen now if people see that where this thing is open and people just could walk on in? Everyone's going to go over there and start taking souvenirs now. Then we got some moron, commenter, "Oh, it's okay, no, it's not okay." That's another thing too. Part of the PsyOp is having to get in there and make some fake commenters and comments to spin this in the direction that they want. So even the comments, the dead internet, they've got AIs now floating all over the place, making up fake comments. They've been doing it for years on Twitter. So this whole thing just stinks of PsyOp. It's so easy. Like I said, entering this, if you can control the news, the information, that is mind control. This you are being used, you are being shown, you are being mind controlled. Let's see what else he's got to say here about the Las Vegas. I've done multiple videos on the Green Beret in Vegas. Let's see what he has to say.
Both served at Fort Bragg. What should also be really interesting to note is that the individual behind the second attempt on Trump, Ryan Wesley Ruth, he visited Fort Bragg multiple times, over 100 times. So what is going on at this fort? The Ryan Wesley Ruth connection is pretty interesting because we know that he was a pro-Ukrainian individual. He was in pro-Ukrainian commercials. He went over to Ukraine to show his support, so he was heavily pro-Ukraine. What's interesting is that Matthew Livelsberger, he was seen wearing a pro-Ukrainian shirt. In 2016, he posted a photo on his social media showing him wearing a shirt which reads Slava Ukraini, which translates to Glory to Ukraine. So that is pretty interesting. This TikTok video by WFF News does an amazing breakdown about the suspicions behind both cases.
This is getting weirder and weirder. The more information that comes out about the New Orleans and the Las Vegas attack, the more it makes me question everything. For one, since when do authorities allow the New York Post to do an MTV Cribs walkthrough of the New Orleans attacker's home? Hey, over here, this was his explosive desk where he would make all of his explosives. Over here is his Koran. Look, right here is the FBI warrant with all the stuff they took. He also left some shirts behind. The Las Vegas attacker had an encrypted messaging app called Signal, and according to his friends, the day of the attack, his security number changed. And then after the explosion, his profile picture and his name changed. You know, he didn't make it, so who was making those changes? Also, according to authorities, everything was incinerated in that blast, except, of course, for his forms of identification. Both his passport and his United States government identification somehow remained intact. Also, nobody's bringing up the fact that the New Orleans attacker rented this truck. Notice on the back of the bed, there's no flagpole. But he had time to assemble a flagpole and put it on the back of the truck and fly a crisis flag, minus the CR, from the back and put a crisis flag in the interior of the cabin just to let everybody know who he was standing with. As if he didn't have a lot of other things going on, like, I don't know, planning attack, making sure he found the weakness in the barriers, planting coolers around town. And I'm not even mentioning the other crazy stuff like the pew-pew wound to the head and was he or was he not self-driven by a Cybertruck to the front of the hotel. But hey, that's in another video. You can watch that previously. Is it just me or does something feel very off here? As always, I want to hear what you think about all of this down below. Drones. The Las Vegas Cybertruck attacker was supposedly working on a new project involving drones. You know this for two reasons. One, his ex-girlfriend came forward with messages that Matt was texting her about the Cybertruck just days before the explosion. And in those text messages, he said, quote, "I'm building drones in my new position. You would love it." And now Sean Ryan, the famous podcaster, former Navy SEAL, and CIA contractor, has released an email from the Las Vegas attacker saying that he wanted to blow the whistle on something that was going on before January 1st, that he felt that people possibly in the intelligence agencies were after him and he wanted to get this information out. Sean Ryan released this email and now said that he's going to be off of social media. He's going to be offline for a while for his own protection. This story is just getting crazier and crazier and makes you wonder, one, why his family have said there's no way that he would ever do this. Two, why he had a pew-pew wound to the head that no authorities can seem to account for. And three, why he would be sending emails to Sean Ryan, the podcaster, about blowing the whistle on something and wanting to do it just days before the Las Vegas attack. As always, I want to hear what you think about all of this down below.
This next interesting video comes from Beauty Merc on TikTok, and he's going to make some interesting connections between a psychological group and Fort Bragg, which I should also say is now known as Fort Liberty.
Shamsuddin Jabbar was once posted at a very specific military base located in North Carolina, one of which used to be named Fort Bragg. Now I'm going to take you down a little rabbit hole and hopefully you can connect the dots for yourself. There's a very specific group that's based out of North Carolina, okay? The group's name is the Force Psychological Operations Group, and the group is known as the Masters of Influence. These are known as PsyOp soldiers, and they use a variety of methods to influence their targets, that including analyzing, developing, and distributing intelligence. That is to influence the emotions, motives, and behavior of their targets. Also using cultural expertise to build relationships with leaders and even civilians. Now, this group has a very interesting recruitment video, which I'll get to here in a second. I first want to go over some history of psychological warfare, something that I myself have been a victim of in the past. Now, psychological warfare was actually established as a subsection, right, of the War Department during World War I. Over 50 million leaflets were delivered and modified artillery shells and leaflet bombs from airplanes on enemy units on the Western Front. And German generals stated that the Allied Psy-War effort, right, had played a huge part in devastating their troops' morale. Now, psychological warfare had actually expanded during World War II with the creation of the Psychological Warfare Branch. The Allied Force Headquarters, the Psychological Warfare Division, the Supreme Headquarters, the Allied Expeditionary Force, and Psy-War sections at the Army Group and Army Field levels. But here's the thing, right? In September of 1950, do keep in mind there's a special little program that started in 1953 that I'm sure you're all aware of by now. But I want you to think about this, okay? Robert A. McClure was named Chief of the Psychological Warfare Division. And this is all publicly available knowledge, okay? People just fail to do their research. So this video cannot be taken down by any means. And if it does, well, then I guess you get it by now, right? But he and his staff established the Psy-War Center at Fort Bragg in 1952. That center still stands today, by the way, and has a very specific name. That being the United States Army John F. Kennedy Special Warfare Center and School. and the fundamental mission of the Psychological Operations Branch has remained the same since World War I, to convey selected information and indicators to foreign audiences to influence their emotions, motives, objective reasoning, and ultimately the behavior of foreign governments, organizations, groups, and individuals. Once again, this is information that is publicly available, okay? And instead of actually putting that recruitment video inside of this video, I'm gonna put it in the comment section down below. So just make sure that you go check that out for me and you come back to me and tell me how you feel about it. And then you tell me how you feel about the incident that occurred in New Orleans.
Now, I've said this before, especially when it came to Thomas Matthew Crooks and all the back and forth, all the very strange things that went into that story. I said I feel like when it comes to these stories, there are certain things put in place to keep us guessing, to keep us asking why, to keep us saying this does not make much sense, to purposely put us down a rabbit hole that leads to nowhere. And like,
yes, that was Minutes of Horror. He is awesome. Go check him out. Yeah, so the the big bearded guy was saying that he was a victim of psychological warfare. Yeah, all of us are with the news. If you're watching the news, then you're a psychological warfare victim. Yes, so very interesting. Either that crew, that New York Post crew, was involved with this, and were allowed to go in there, or they are guilty of breaking and entering. And, that's, they're never going to get charged with that. So one more thing, as far as the Vegas guy, they're now showing video of the thing pulling up to Trump, and there's somebody sitting in the driver's side, and he moves. You can see him kind of move, and then there's a flash, an explosion. But they said that he had taken a kinetic energy round to the head, but when you look at this video, there's none of that. There's no, it's just a guy, and he's and then 10,000 degrees or more. So it's a lot of weird stuff going on. Please like, share, and subscribe. We'll see you on the next Ultra Top Secret.